More than once. All right. Well, welcome everyone. This is the Q1 HubSpot user group from Lansing, Michigan. Today, we're going to be doing a deep dive into sales enablement. I have a wonderful guest speaker here with us today, Ann Kraft. Super excited to hear from her. And I am your hug leader, Angelique from InVerve Marketing. Thrilled to be putting on yet another one of these. So with that in mind, Ann, if you want to take us forward.
I will.
Our agenda is pretty straight to the point. We've got an agenda, which you are seeing right here. We're going to do a little bit of an icebreaker. We've got a swag giveaway. We'll get into the presentation, which is about 45 minutes. And we have set aside about 15 minutes towards the end of the presentation for any and all questions you may have. If you've got questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to put them in chat and we'll get to them at the end. And of course, I'm going to promote our next hug at the very, very end. Let's go ahead and move it along. So I am going to go ahead and put the swag link in chat, guys. Anyone who is interested in grabbing some, just go to the link and fill out the form. Pretty exciting stuff, guys. HubSpot swag is pretty much the best. As far as icebreaker, if everyone wants to put in chat what's the number one thing you want to get out of the session today, we'll make sure that we get it covered or answer it as a question at the end. So use that chat feature, guys. It's there for a reason. Anyone? Bueller? All right. Well, if no one's gonna fill that out, that's fine. We'll just keep her moving.
You can always put your questions in the chat all the way through as well, and we'll try to get to them at the end.
Absolutely. Well, with that, I'm going to hand it over to Ann, our resident expert on sales enablement and all things marketing.
All right, away we go. I'm just going to give you a 2-second overview of how I got into inbound marketing. I literally was at a Christmas party back in 2009, and a friend of mine asked me, "Oh, have you read this book, Inbound Marketing?" And I said, "No, it sounds interesting." And being the nerd that I am, I pulled my Kindle out of my purse and downloaded it, so I wouldn't forget to read it. And about 5 months later, I had a contract with a company in Lansing that has clients in 23 different countries to write a strategy for social media. And that was the beginning of my digital marketing agency. During that time, I became a HubSpot certified retailer. And while I did not maintain my agency, I decided I didn't really like agency life all that much. I did implement HubSpot at 2 different jobs since then, and I have just recently renewed my sales enablement HubSpot certification. I highly recommend it. It's a very good training. So I'm here to share kind of what I've learned from not just that training itself, but actually implementing it in an organization and how you can use that to your advantage. So why sales enablement? I want to say that as marketers, it's really tempting sometimes to look at, oh, there's a new technology, and oh, we can do this really cool thing, and let's make something pretty. Let's make something that is, fun for people to do. And while you certainly want to do that, you have to understand, and we as marketers need to remind ourselves on a regular basis that we are here to get results. We are here to drive profit if you're in a profit organization, or whether it is driving enrollments or driving some type of action by the people that are interacting with us. And so in order to meet your mission, in order to meet your goals, in order to drive revenue, you have to focus on the things that really drive revenue. So that's what sales enablement is all about. I do want to say that many organizations have processes and missions and different goals outside of sales, but this obviously is specifically about sales and the sales process. So I want to go on and talk about what you need to be clear about in the beginning. And not everyone really is in tune to the clarity that you need. I know I've been in lots of organizations where it's like, yep, you've got this goal, but they're not aligned from top to bottom. Or we've got some marketing goals, but they're not necessarily aligned with sales goals. So you have to be really clear about your process for translating the company goals into sales and marketing goals. And I'm going to talk about how I did that in my last organization, or how I was part of that process in my last organization. And then also the relationship between marketing and sales. In some organizations, it's crazy to me, but they don't really talk a whole lot, which doesn't make a lot of sense. Or they're just not aligned. You've got the sales manager making sales goals and the marketing manager making marketing goals, and they haven't figured out how to align those two processes. Who your target buyer is and who it isn't. That's really super important. And then how are leads passed from marketing to sales, and what is the expectation for both teams along that process? So we'll talk about SLAs, or service level agreements. And then the last is the content creation process at your organization. Who is it that is creating content? Is it only the marketing team? It shouldn't be. It should also be actually everyone in your organization, or all departments in your organization. So what I'm going to talk about is this objectives and key results. I'm curious how many people have used objectives and key results. It's also, this is kind of the same methodology that is, Angelique, what is the name of you guys use 40X at InVerve, correct?
No.
Oh, I thought you did. Okay. Well, it's 40X, it's OKRs. There are lots of different ways that you can align your goals and reach your next goals across the organization.
Yeah, we use KPIs. That's
okay. Well,
that's
yeah,
KPIs.
Okay. There are a couple different systems, and OKRs and KPIs are related, but they're not the same. So what an OKR is if you look at your business and you say, what are the things that I have to achieve in the next 12 to 18 months in order to help us meet our vision? What are the things I have to achieve? It's a long-term goal. Why does it matter? Why does it matter to us internally? Why does it matter externally to our stakeholders? Is it inspiring? Is it energizing? Is this going to rally the troops around what we are doing as a company? So that's like an overarching objective. A key result is how you know that you're successful. Is it the best impossible result for that quarter? What would we have more of or less of if we're successful? So I want to give you a quick example of what this looks like in an organization. This is from a company called Workboard. And what the OKR system basically has the leaders of the organization, the C-suite, make the OKRs for the company level, and then each department aligns underneath the company objectives. So this is an example from Workboard's website from Microsoft. And as you can see, the CEO says, we're going to make it easier for the right customers to buy and hard for them to leave. That's a pretty big mission, and it can get you energized around that. When you go to the chief marketing officer, she looks at that and says, okay, we have to drive demand and build the sales pipeline. And then she's got some KPIs underneath that, or key results. And
So
then, yeah.
KPIs and OKRs really go hand in hand. You really need both to find the success.
Absolutely. What the OKR does is it organizes your KPIs, and you look at, let's say, we used to measure hundreds of KPIs, right? And they all give you a different little piece of the puzzle. What an OKR does is it groups the most important KPIs for your team into an area and says, okay, if we can get this key result, we're gonna word it as a key result. So the result might be we're going to increase leads by 5% in the next quarter. Great. Marketing qualified leads or sales qualified leads, however, whichever one you want to do. Then you identify what are the lead indicators. How are we generating leads now? How are we going to increase the number of leads based on what we already know? What are we going to try new to try to generate leads? So it's really a system of organization to focus on the right things. And then when you've got your 200 KPIs that you're tracking, it's like putting a special light on the KPIs that are going to move your business initiatives forward, the most important business initiatives. So that's kind of how that all works. And it really does energize your team to say, okay, we've got this goal and we know we've got to do, the 600 things that are on our list, because I don't know a marketing team out there that's sitting around there twiddling their thumbs trying to figure out what to do next, right? There's always something to do. This one says, we're going to put a special focus on this. We're going to keep working at it to reach our goals and go ahead and put our budget there as well. So thank you for that question. Okay, I just want to quickly mention there are a couple books that are really good that talk about this process. If you're interested, Measure What Matters is pretty much the authority on it. The other one is called Radical Focus, both very good. And if you're interested in this methodology, Workboard is the company that we worked with, and they're fantastic. So let me move on. Okay, let's talk about your ideal customers for a minute. Ideal customers, I think this was a hard concept to grasp when I was running my business and had just started it. Because when you're in that position, you're like, I need to make money. I want everyone to be my customer. I'll take anyone who comes along. And that is really not the best way to go about it, because then you're not maximizing the time of your salespeople to either maximize profit or maximize outcomes, whatever those outcomes are. So you really need to narrow it down. Is there a certain economic factor that is that's important? Are you targeting companies maybe between $5 and $10 million? Is there a particular market segment or a geographic location or legal standards? There's all kinds of things that can define who your ideal customer is. The biggest thing is you need to know who it is, where they work, what they do, what their roles are, and that will help you build out your buyer personas. So a methodology that I really like to use for buyer personas is buyer persona research. And this isn't the methodology that I have used in the past differs a little bit from your run-of-the-mill buyer persona research. I did a training through the Buyer Persona Institute, and it was really fantastic, number one, but it really gets down to who's your persona. We look at obviously all of the demographic information, but demographics can be all over the board. Demographics are actually the least for most things except for consumer goods. It is getting harder and harder to target people by just demographics other than, in the workplace. I would say that if you're looking at the key attributes and their role in the buying decision, that helps you increase your accuracy there.
And
what are their priorities?
How often would you say people should conduct buyer persona research? So for example, if demographics are shifting and you generally target younger people, for example, that of course is a constantly changing demographic. How often would you conduct this kind of research?
What I recommend is doing it about every 3 years, because it helps you survey the market. And also when you look at your customer base, you can get clues from your customer base. It may shift faster than that. It may shift slower than that. But if you look at your customer base and realize that, oh, we just shifted into a new demographic, use your data, use your customer data that you have to judge that. If you see a major shift, then it's probably a good idea to do this research again.
Smart.
But otherwise, I'd probably do it every 3 years because the market changes constantly. So the next thing is the priority initiative. What are they trying to do that makes them prioritize your product or service at this time? What are the success factors that they're looking at? What positive results do they want to see by implementing a solution like yours? What are the barriers, both within their organization and just with attitudes and obstacles with people that are in their organization? Maybe you've got, a CFO who has said, we've got a freeze on spending right now. Well, that's a pretty big barrier. That's a harder mountain to climb. What is the decision criteria? Do you have a preferred vendor list? Are there, preference for women-owned businesses? Are there, other things, other factors for the buying decision itself? And then actually looking at the buyer's journey. And buyer journey, we all think that we know what that is, right? But Adele Ravella, who is, she literally wrote the book on buyer personas, a best-selling book, says that if it doesn't come from a buyer's mouth, it's guesswork. And I don't know how many times we think we know, and then you go out and do that market research and it's like, oh, snap, it's not what I thought it was, right? So it's important to do that research on a regular basis. So the other thing I want to mention here is that I think most of us know this, that 70% of a buying decision occurs before the buyer ever talks to a salesperson. So if that is true, and I think we believe that's true, right? You better know what your target audience needs and have it available on your website where it can be easily found. So I'll quickly just mention again, Buyer Personas, great book, Adele Ravella, through the Buyer Persona Institute. And you can also check out their website. They've got tons of resources there as well. Okay, let's talk about measuring sales readiness. I love this meme because it, I was in an organization where before we implemented HubSpot, they were not really, marketing was not really generating a lot of leads for sales, which is kind of, mind-boggling, right? But then when sales started actually getting leads from marketing, they were so excited and they'd like call the people right away. So it's really important for people to at least be qualified a little bit. So in order to do that, you need to identify the actions that people take that are correlated with purchasing your products. And if at all possible, obviously base it on data. Data-driven decision-making is the most accurate. So basically, when you look at this, you see, okay, I've got interactions on my website. We're going to look at content conversions and page views, which specific pages are viewed. Have they submitted a form? They're raising their hand saying, hey, I want more information about this. Live chat interactions, others, your email engagement, opens, clicks, replies, all of those, whether or negative metrics, right? Where they're unsubscribing, that tells you a story too.
So, Anne, do you talk to people even before they've been qualified? What if they're not
Well,
sales qualified?
yeah, so I would say this is a tricky question, and we are going to get into that a little bit. There's obviously marketing qualified, where marketing says, okay, these people who are coming to our site meet this certain criteria, and we're going to send that over to sales now. And sometimes sales says, well, okay, great, awesome. Sometimes if you are a newer organization or you're not very sophisticated, then any lead gets passed over to sales, and then sales continues to qualify them. But if you are at a velocity where you are bringing in a lot of people, and you have more people coming in than your sales team can handle, you need to keep them in that qualified phase a little bit further and refine your qualification process. So if they're not exactly in your target market, but it still might be a good fit, you could pass them on to sales if they have enough time to properly qualify them. If they are swamped and don't have enough time, then you need to try to do what you can to keep them in your qualification process. So that could be sending them questionnaires or other educational material, having them fill out some information that so that you can educate them further in specific areas.
Well, and also have them do a bit of the legwork for you, right? Help them qualify
Exactly.
themselves or negate them from your interested prospects.
Exactly. That is exactly right. So if they attend a webinar, for instance, you can lead them through a process, but you can do that with, unlimited numbers of people on the other side. You can lead them all through that qualification process kind of at the same time.
Nice.
So, and that's actually a nice way to do it. I will say that when you are putting together that lead qualification framework, or when you are putting together lead scoring, within HubSpot, you can obviously set up lead scoring that says, oh, if they visit this page, they get 5 points. If they visit the pricing page, they get 20 points. If they take this action, they get other points. That's an entirely different presentation, because it's, obviously very involved. However, once you get all of that decision making done, you can implement that, and then you can help qualify those leads in 4 areas. And that's what's really important, is getting to the point where they have the budget to purchase your product or service, that they have the authority, that you're speaking with or you're interacting with people who are actually part of the decision making process, that the need is in their organization and that it's a good fit, and that your sales process actually meets their timeline. So if they're looking at something for next year and your sales process is about 3 months, it's probably not a great time to try to interact with them on that. So, okay, we're going to talk about specific opportunities for sales enablement through the flywheel. And first, I want to talk a little bit about what sales enablement is. It's really looking at the technology, the tools, all of the activities that we take as marketers that help people come to a buying decision faster, that help the sales team spend more time on sales and less time on education. So the more that we can educate and get our prospects ready for the sale beforehand, the easier it is for the sales team. And we want to make it easier for them, because then they can spend this much time instead of this much time with each prospect, trying to get them through that process. So I want to do a quick overview of the sales process. And this is pretty much the same, regardless, the broad categories are the same, regardless of what industry you're in. I will say that if you have a longer sales process, then this is pretty accurate. If you are selling a widget that can be purchased instantly on a website, your sales process is not this long. So you probably need to spend a lot more time looking specifically at how to convert website traffic to a sale, which is it's a very different process. But we're talking about products and services that have a little bit longer of a sales process that includes prospecting, qualifying, researching, making a presentation, handling their objectives, and then closing the sale. And I'm going to go through specifically each of these steps with you to show what kinds of content you can provide along the way. Okay. So prospecting, let's think about what the seller is doing and what the buyer is doing in this situation. Sorry, I just clicked on the wrong screen here. The seller is at this point researching the market, any kind of market research that you can get that helps you figure out where your buyers are. They are defining their qualification criteria, generating leads, and creating your unique value proposition. The buyer just has to become aware of their business problem or challenge. So marketing at this point needs to focus on branding, product awareness, and generating leads. What we typically do to do that, this is the part where people really love to focus because it's kind of easy. And I would say it's easier than other parts of the sales process. Generating awareness, doing branding activities, you just have to like get it out there, right? The question is, are you getting it out to the right people? So you do some press releases perhaps, or you do PR events, do some special partnerships, go to trade shows, do sponsorships, do display ads, social media, work your referrals if you have them, maybe publish some content in partner communications, and could be purchasing a list, which is not always the best, but it can sometimes work. And you should be working on phone and email scripts for sales. Now, a lot of people say, wait a minute, isn't that the sales team's job? Well, sure, but not all salespeople are great writers. And if you can give them some key messages or some templates or language that also matches what's on your website, that will also really help them sell better and make sure that everything is consistent.
We love templates. It's just one of those things that helps sales not sound so salesy in a way, because we've had the opportunity to really curate what they're saying.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when you are prospecting, the buyer gets to the point where they're experiencing and expressing symptoms of a problem or an opportunity. So they have to recognize that, right? So what you're doing is, I love this. This takes me back to my radio days. One of the most effective radio ads that we ran was one that started with a question. Are you experiencing back pain? Because immediately, if that is the case, then you listen. And if it's not the case, you're not the target audience and you kind of tune out, right? But that works with all kinds of other ads too. So you run ads that really showcase what the problem is or what the opportunity is in what you're doing. You can put out reports, ebooks, editorial content is great for shining a light on different issues or problems or opportunities. Any kind of educational content. And I'm going to say video. I didn't have room for that on my slide, but video has just taken off. It has skyrocketed especially throughout the pandemic. So it has just become absolutely essential. So what you want to look at as far as your metrics, obviously the reach and frequency of your message, whether that is online or whether it's through your traditional media channels. are really important. You need to look at how many new visitors are at your website and how much time they're spending on your page, how many pages they're viewing, what is the click-through rate on each of your CTAs, your call to actions, and what is your prospect to opportunity. Out of all of those web pages, what is the rate at which you are creating people who are starting to raise their hand? And that is the biggest thing you need to look at when you look at your benchmark. So before you start running a campaign on something, you should benchmark your data. Make sure that you've got, you know where you are. And then when you start your campaign, you can look at that velocity. One of the things that I'd like to point out here is that you should track your organic traffic and your paid traffic separately and analyze each of them separately, because leads are really only as good as the messaging that brought them there. So if it's organic traffic, that means they're coming to your website because of SEO, your SEO efforts. If it's paid, then what are the messages that are working and converting? And you need to make sure that whatever that message is, they are getting that need met on your website. So if you go in and you look at your bounce rate, for instance, if your bounce rate is really high, what does that tell you? It tells you that your message and your marketing was awesome, but then when they got to your landing page, the messaging there is not converting or it's not good. So if they do stay, where do they go from there? How many pages do they view? Which pages do they view? So if you have to look at where the data is telling you a story. So one of the things that that I used a lot when we found that our marketing was really good, but our landing page was not great, was using Hotjar. Have you ever used Hotjar before?
Oh yeah. Love it.
It's almost like it's one of my favorite, I call it one of my creeper tools, right? Where you kind of watch people navigate your website and figure out where the hotspots are and figure out what they're actually doing and where they're getting hung up. I love that
Doesn't
tool.
make me feel like a stalker at all.
I wear it as a badge of honor that I'm the head stalker, right? I'm totally okay with that.
Yeah, the data and analytics, though, really are priceless. It really does give you a feel for how your users are interacting with that content. So many insights. And it's a free tool. There are paid versions, but there's a reason we use it anywhere and everywhere we can. Why not give our clients a leg up?
Absolutely. You can test your copy, you can test your CTAs, you can test whatever design elements, etc. See which one works best and then put the money towards that one. It makes a whole lot more sense. Okay, I will say for reducing friction, that's another part of this entire process, is how do we make it easier for our prospects to move through the sales process? How do we make it easier for our sales team? Your website UX is so incredibly important. It is so important. If you have really slow load speeds, that needs to be fixed. You have to have easy navigation. You have to have a great search experience. And you need to make sure that learning more or taking the next action that you need them to take is front and center and super easy for them to do. The other thing I want to just raise a little flag and mention here is ADA compliance. Americans with disabilities have such a difficult time navigating websites that have not been optimized for screen readers. And so it doesn't matter if you think you've got 1 or 100 or a million, making it easier for that person to navigate your website and including everyone is a huge big deal. So if you have not done that and have not spent time on making your site ADA compliant, it is time well spent. Okay, next one, my favorite person I love to hate, Gordon Ramsay. Connecting and qualifying your leads. So really people are saying, okay, I've figured out that this company is interesting and I'm still sticking around. I'm looking at this, to see if this is maybe a possible solution for us. They are really asking questions and getting very curious at this point. So as a seller, you want to capitalize on that. At this point, you want to provide as much value as possible with free content that educates your audience. So anything that you can do to connect with them, get them into your email workflows, get and remarket them, even if they have already filled out a form. I always say continue to remarket to them until they have actually converted and are in your sales funnel.
And I'm a little surprised to see webinars on your marketing activities list. What kind of webinars would you use at this stage to engage in an appropriate way with prospects?
Well, actually, that was directly from my last work experience. We decided, well, you know what? A lot of times, what people do is put up a frequently asked questions document, and it's a pretty, they tend to be pretty short and don't explain a whole lot. So I was riding back from a conference with my sales manager, and I said, okay, we've got this big initiative coming up. What are the questions that you're getting about this? And so he started listing out the questions, and I'm like, okay, make a list of those. And let's go to our next product or service. What are the questions that you're getting? And so what we did was really looked at it from a what's happening in the market standpoint. What do people need to know in order to make this decision? So let me give you an example. Let's say that you're selling enterprise resource ERP systems, and your product is maybe a beginner product. It's not one of the big ones. It's not Microsoft or something of that nature, but you've got an ERP system, and it's really good for smaller companies that are just getting started. Maybe they've been kind of hobbling things together. We do that as entrepreneurs. We start taking, here's this product or service and this free thing and this thing, and we kind of make it work. But then when your business gets to a certain point, you need to put a system in place, kind of like when you implement HubSpot. So you've identified your target market to be companies that have between $5 and $10 million, and they're buying their first ERP system. So what I would do then is say, okay, I'm going to put a webinar on that says, that answers the question, when do you know if implementing an ERP makes business sense? Not just if I think I need it, but when do I know if it makes business sense? And then you could do a webinar that talks about how processes are streamlined and by what percentages, and then give example of soft cost. Here's how much time it takes your employees to go through the process, and what your overall savings are from salaries, and then the hard costs involved. So when it reaches that tipping point of costing you more in soft costs than it does shelling out the money for the ERP system, you can put a formula together to help people walk their business through it to decide if they are ready. So that's an example.
Nice.
So we found great success, and we actually generated a lot more leads through a webinar than any other sales activity that we were doing.
Wow.
So we tried to make sure that we had them on an ongoing basis. Okay. This is taking longer than I expected, so I'm going to let you read your metrics and reducing friction. I will just say the one thing I want to mention is that using those templates, using all of the places in the Sales Hub where you can put templates together and put your resources, your sales team needs to be able to find that material within 1 minute. And that would be a metric that, as a sales and marketing manager, that I would be looking at is put them through trial tests. Is it where you can find it? Let's make sure that you've got what you need when you need it. Okay, the next stage in the sales process is researching. And the prospect has clearly defined and given a name to their problem or opportunity. So the seller right now is trying to make sure that they know about the organization. They're really digging down into figuring out if they're a good fit, what the levers are that they can pull. The buyers are researching your company. They're considering if it's a good fit for them, if there are other solutions in the market. Do you fit their price point? Do you fit their timeline? All of those 4 factors that we talked about. So marketing at this point, in addition to educating, this is when you really have to win the hearts and minds of your buyers. It's a time when you need to make sure that you are putting it front and center that, yes, I'm going to be able to meet your needs. So what do you do during this stage as a marketing team? Email marketing. Email marketing, people make fun of it. And I know I sign up for email lists and then I, unsubscribe to them after a while, or I stay on them for a while, or I put them in a filter. So I make sure I always have my Michael's coupons when I go to Michael's or whatever it is. Right. But your email list is a gold mine, and the purpose of your marketing should be to get someone on your email list so that you can serve up content to them when you want to, when you need to, or when they're in a certain stage in the buying process. It's a whole lot cheaper to send out an email than it is to keep sending out advertisements. The other thing you need to keep in mind here is that it really does take up to 15 touches to stay top of mind with your target buyers. And you know what it's like when you go research something on the internet. I don't know what happens to you, but I get my ADD going on and I start looking at other things, start looking at other companies, and you want to make sure that you are the one who comes to mind when they are making that decision. I will say too, I want to talk about chatbots a little bit. Chatbots are a great way to engage people in the sales process. And a lot of people look at chatbots as kind of an extension of customer care. It's a really great way to help people find the information they need to get them to the next level. So for instance, if someone comes to your website and they're looking at a pricing page, you know that if they're looking at your pricing page and they stay on that page for a while, then it's they're not being shocked and saying, "Oh, we can't afford that," and clicking away. Then maybe you can help qualify them for one of those other factors through your chatbot. What's your timeline for your project? 1 to 3 months, 3 to 6 months, whatever your process is.
And I see that you've got remarketing on your marketing activities list there. Why would you continue to remarket to a prospect that's already in your pipeline?
If they are in your pipeline, I will say that I remarket to them for a time after that, because again, it's about being top of mind. Even if they see you in their email box, we know that email open rates are still, if you're doing a great job, they're 30%. If you're doing a good job, industry standards around 20 to 22%, right? So they may or may not be opening all of those emails, and it's about trying to get to that number of 15. Not forever. If you get to the point where they are saying, okay, give me a proposal, it's probably, you can turn off the remarketing, but I keep it going for a little while till you get to the proposal stage.
Thanks.
And then, of course, whatever channels you choose. And, the other, when I talk about ADD, it's like, oh, we want to do all the things. Pick a few things for each stage and do it really well and keep your focus on it. So look at your open rates, your engagement rates, how many of those prospects are returning to your pages to study more, what your chatbot sessions look like. And as far as reducing friction, I just want to say that the easier, again, it is to use your website, to use your resources, keep your videos short, keep them interesting. It's the best way to do that. All right. I need a quick drink. Presenting stage. Sellers are presenting their demo and their sales deck. The buyers are looking at the demo. Maybe if you've got a pilot test product, that would be, if you have a pilot, it'd be the time they would be doing this. And they're talking about your product or service and their options with the other stakeholders. It's really important for you to continue to win their hearts and minds. Position your brand and minimize the competition. And don't be afraid to call out the competition, not necessarily by name, but make sure you know what your unique selling proposition is and that you communicate that to your buyers at this stage. Continue to nurture those leads. Help your sales team with scripts. Features and benefit content is really good here. Talk about what the customer experience is for onboarding. This gets them thinking about the future and helps them to visualize themselves in that process. So that is, if they always say, if you're in a sales situation and you can get your prospect to nod yes, they want to experience good customer service. So you can't just say, oh, we've got really great customer service. You want to say, well, you're going to be assigned a customer success coach. You are going to have a single point of contact. You are going to get this material on this schedule to help bring along the other people in your organization. And the more that you can help them visualize that, the more you can get them to nod their head yes, because everyone wants a great customer experience. Again, you want to look at those engagement and the click-through open rates of any material that you're sending. The next stage is handling objections, because there are always objections. And when you think you've handled all their objections, then there are always new ones, unfortunately. So really what everyone's job is at this point is to handle those concerns. And what you can do is put together lots of different kinds of content, lead nurturing, the Q&A, the facts, how to convince your C-suite. How many times have you seen this kind of content? Here's if you need to know, how are you going to convince the person who's in charge of finance? Well, here's how this makes financial sense. If you need to convince someone who's in charge of operations, here's what our implementation plan looks like. Anything that can help you help them overcome objections from other people within their own organization will be helpful. Again, it's the open and engagement rates. Reducing friction at this point is really just making sure that they're having a good experience while consuming your content. I will say too that if you look back from the beginning of the sales process to the end, marketing has much more responsibility at the beginning, and then it shifts more to sales. But it doesn't mean that you can't continue to help sales through your enablement content. The other thing that I found really helpful with my marketing and sales team is keeping a shared document where every time sales came up and heard a new objection when they were in the field, they put it down on the sheet and they alerted us that they had a new objection. And so we would take a look at that and say, okay, how would we overcome that? Or how did you overcome it as the sales team? And then we would take that feedback and incorporate it back into the messaging, both on our website and in our email series.
Yeah, we actually have clients we've created cheat sheets for them. So when they get the objections to their product, yep, we've already got the answer and here it is, in a really digestible, easy to relay snippet, right?
Absolutely. It's kind of like preparing for a debate, right? You think about all the things that people could say to bring you down, and you've already got your your counter example. Okay, last closing the deal. You think this is the last stage, but it's actually not the last stage. It's the last stage in the sales process itself, but not in the flywheel. So we'll continue to go there, and I will try to speed up a little bit because I know we're running out of time. The prospect is now decided on their solution strategy, method, or approach, and you really just need to negotiate and gain the agreement, finalize your contract, and then transition your customer to sales operations to start their service. The buyer's trying to negotiate the best deal, get it through their contracting process, and begin payment and service. Marketing, obviously you are supporting sales, but you begin to delight your customers at this point. You can do that through email, again, helping them visualize what's going to come next or get started with tutorials, that kind of thing. Do a physical mailing at this point if this makes sense for your type of audience, with a little welcome package or some swag in it. That always, we sent out mugs and little coffee, the things that protect your table.
Coasters?
A coaster, thank you. Branded coasters and coffee cups with major clients. And because everyone's going to use a coaster and they're going to see your brand there all the time. Just things of that nature, but things that are useful that people like. Put out your onboarding, any kind of training you have. Keep putting use cases out there. Sometimes you have a product or service that can be used for more than one thing. And they say, oh yeah, this is what we had in mind for our initial implementation, but here's how we can use this for another part of our business that makes a lot of sense. So, or using different features to enhance the experience. And then introduce your key staff, know who they're going to be working with, who they are going to, who their point of contact is going to be after the sale, so they don't keep going back to the salespeople. That's a huge problem in many cases. Once the salesperson gets to the handoff, that actually handing them off, because they know the salesperson so well at this point, they just want to call, and the salesperson's like, I want to focus my energy on bringing new people on board. So I need our operations team to go ahead and take over from here. So the more you can introduce those people and start building rapport, the easier it is to make that handoff after the sale. So really, if you're looking at reducing friction, implementing that digital quote, contract, and signature through the Sales Hub, oh my gosh, we did everything by paper before the pandemic, and then the pandemic hit, and it's like, okay, now we need to implement this. It makes the sales process go so much faster when it's convenient for the buyer to buy and get those signatures in there. And then the other thing that is really helpful is to trigger a workflow to put that email sequence and training sequence in place after the sale is closed. And that will, again, reduce the amount of calls to your customer care team. It will let your customers know that it's intentional and that they can trust you to take them through that process. Okay, and then of course there's delighting the customer, and it all becomes about customer experience at this point. It is educating and turning the customer into a brand evangelist. And the only way to turn someone into a brand evangelist is to provide them with a great experience. Say what you're going to do what you said, and absolutely hold their hand throughout the whole way. Creating videos, blogs, educational content, continue to educate them. I think one of the best examples that I think about with this is I have a Google Pixel phone, and I love my Google Pixel phone. But as with any type of technology, it's like, oh, this is what I use it for. But then I get emails and videos and tutorials from Google every month that says, hey, did you know that your Pixel phone can do this? And then I find myself expanding my use of this product. So that's what you want to be doing with your prospects. If you have a product that is something that they use, like a piece of software, if you have analytics about how they're using the software and you can correlate those with with your marketing to them afterwards, that's even better. Sometimes, that's pretty sophisticated. We don't always have those systems in place, but if you do have that data available, the more you can get them to use your product, to love your product, the more they will stay with you, add value across the lifetime of that customer. And then the other thing that I really like to do during this stage, if someone is having a great experience with your product or service, inviting them to be the subject of a case study is an awesome idea. To give a testimonial, to do a guest blog. If someone is one of your clients is a good writer, you've seen other things that they've done, or they are just have a great personality, they're great on camera, on Zoom, they are engaging, invite them to do something for you, and it makes them feel good. It feed into their ego a little bit, but at the same time, it provides a great case study for you. That is all a part of delighting the customer. If you have a podcast, invite them to be on your podcast. Customers love doing this kind of stuff. So the more that you can align those metrics and invite your customers into your business process, I would say that's even better. Make them look good. Okay, metrics. Obviously, there's a whole set of metrics around your customer care team. But again, here, if you have a robust KB, your knowledge base, your customer care team should be able to find whatever they need within 1 minute or less. And then you can track your open and click-through rates for your education. Look at your reviews. Reviews are incredibly important, whether it's on Yelp or a software review site, on Google, etc. Make sure that you keep track of that, and then make it super easy to purchase, upgrade, or cancel orders on your website if possible. Implement that one point of contact and provide multiple channels to access customer care, because that's what people want to know is how do you solve my problem immediately if I'm having one. I'm going to say just real quickly about KPIs and upping your game. There are a lot of ways to track your KPIs. You can do a lot of them through HubSpot. HubSpot has a robust reporting tool that you can slice and dice in a million different ways. It's really great for data visualization. Some people like to use Power BI, bring it in from a bunch of different sources. Whether you're doing that or even putting together your own Excel sheet, just you have to track it, and you have to track it in a way that you can easily see the growth and also see how you are meeting your goals. I'm going to show this really quickly because I want to circle back to OKRs. And again, while I recommend tracking a lot of different KPIs based on your goals, you should have a separate tracking system specifically aligned to your OKRs. It's really important for several reasons. First of all, within the system, you have like a weekly cadence of accountability. So you need to look at your metrics weekly to see if you are reaching your goals. We always set up goals. If you look at this, you'll see that across the bottom, there are a bunch of different tabs. And each of those different tabs, we pulled in metrics from all of our different systems onto each individual tabs, and then created this dashboard out of all of the data from the tabs. But one of those tabs is tracking OKR KPIs. And that one specifically, we spent time and attention every single week, making sure we knew that our lead measures were on track for success to meet our OKRs. So that's why I wanted to mention that. If you want to increase your business by 5%, you need to increase your leads by 5%, your sales qualified leads, maybe by 10%, depending on your closing rates. So maybe you need to increase your marketing qualified leads by 20%. You need to reverse engineer your metrics. So the only way that you are going to know if you are meeting those OKRs is to track it weekly and to see if you are on pace. And if you're not on pace, you need to reallocate effort. You need to reallocate budget in order to increase those lead indicators. Okay, and here's a gratuitous picture of my kitten because he's adorable and you've stuck with me this long.
He is indeed adorable.
He's also a terrorist, but we love him anyway.
Well, I know that we are over time, but I want to give just the opportunity for any questions. One did come in during the presentation. Gina asked, how do you set expectations with salespeople and the leads that they are getting?
That is a great question. So one of the things that is really important is to have an SLA, or what is called a I'm going to forget what the name of it is.
Service level agreement.
Service level agreement. Thank you. Yes. It's basically, you come to an agreement beforehand, what that looks like. So I would get my sales manager together and my marketing manager together and say, okay, we are going to be producing this many leads. And we know that this is actually a proven thing. If you follow up on a lead within 5 minutes, it is like 70% more likely to close. If there's any possible way that you can get close to 5 minutes when you get a sales qualified lead, and if not, it needs to be within the same business day, maybe the next business day. Whatever agreement that you come to, you want to try to shorten the time as much as possible. And then you can track that. You can track when it went to the salesperson and when it took them, as long as they're logging everything in HubSpot, then you can track that time and then try to work towards goals. That could be one of your OKRs, to try to shorten the time between getting the lead and responding to the lead. But there should be very clearly defined metrics between the marketing team and the sales team to make sure that leads are followed up on.
Great answer. If anyone has additional questions, please feel free to shoot me an email and we'll make sure that those get answered as part of sending out this presentation. And if you want to just continue down, we have a little bit of housekeeping to wrap everything up.
Okay. Oops, I clicked on the wrong thing. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
There we go.
So as always, we would like to know how we did. Did you enjoy the topic today? Was it a good presentation? We are going to provide this presentation, which will have the link embedded in it. Please take a couple of minutes and fill that survey out. If you want to reach out to InVerve Marketing, which is my company, please feel free. You can also reach out to the HubSpot Academy if you've got questions. And one last slide. Now I'm going like super speed.
Oh, sorry. There we go.
Save the date, guys. Next upcoming hug is going to be in June. The actual date has not been determined. It will be at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on a Tuesday, because that's when works. If there's a topic you want covered, please feel free to reach out and let me know what you'd like to hear about. We're always interested in presenting what people actually want to hear. Events.hubspot.com/Lansing for future events. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you.